Hi, it's Steve and Joe from Freshagenda. And Steve, we're just going to take a little bit of a walk through the GDT results, some global trade highlights, and of course the chat of the week.
Of course, the highlight of the week. So GDT 264, a bit of context. Always like to start with that. We had sideways skim milk powder and non-fat prices leading up to this. We had firming butter prices, which were encouraging, particularly in Europe, with very strong trade numbers again. It showed up. And despite the last GDT event, which was a very strong whole milk powder result, we haven't really seen a great difference in that differential between imported and local cost and notional cost of local products there.
So still plenty of incentive there in that gap to import, you would think.
And the signals leading up to this event was strong buying in the futures market for whole milk powder, which supported that. So the result was generally quite mixed. That's a spectacular looking chart again. Down a little bit overall, demand generally weaker, we'll come to that. But just putting in the context, it showed what where we ended up. We ended up a little bit stronger than what we might have done in whole milk powder, I think. But just cutting into it, demand was a little bit weaker than the previous event, and weaker than average in most cases, except whole milk powder, which was the standard. But just showing where that sits. That's that usual plotting that we do of the demand supply ratio and the change in price that shows what drives the movement in prices on GDT. But so both powders really in the bunch. Skim a little weaker. Fats was the disappointment. And not unsurprising, but we're going through this acid test time now. We see, lifting European prices. Is that enough to pull up the demand for New Zealand butter? And no. So we now see a huge gap against the European price. Nearly $500 a tonne differential between those prices, which is quite interesting. But demand quite weak. And the differential the discount for AMF is still very heavy.
Yeah, which is interesting. We've talked about the fact that, with butter, obviously much more exposed to food service, so you would expect that demand would be a bit affected. But AMF going into those industrial uses, you'd think maybe it would do a little bit better, but perhaps this is evidence that there's a substitution for vegetable-based fat going into some of those uses. Even
though some of those veg prices have picked up of late with strong demand into that region as well. But there's definitely a big discount there for AMF though. But Fonterra might have a big fat problem leading into this season. Yeah. So next couple of results on GDT will be really important to see what whether there is some ignition.
Yeah, at those lower prices, because were you saying they're a 4-year low?
4-year low, yes. We see back to when the market was picking up out of the trough in 2016. Last time we passed 3,500 a tonne for butter.
Yeah, so good buying there.
And skim milk powder, again we had the Americans back on the market. So after a good result last time, this time New Zealand didn't fare as well. They lost most.
So that premium was eroded a bit.
A little bit, yeah. You see there it's come down a little bit, but still healthy. Still up in the higher end of where we've seen against European product, and the American product achieved a very similar result to what the Europeans did on average. So not unexpected. And cheddar, I think cheddar came out quite well. You see that nice little upward tip there in the GDT prices in that bottom chart, but a little firmer in Europe, and we know the story in the US, which the longer we go, that price stays up. We're seeing the futures prices push out a little higher later. So even US cheddar blocks for futures are still around $4,000 in December, so still a healthy price.
Yeah, a bit of a spine in that price, isn't there?
We've also got headlines here on the trade data. We've added up, and this is May, so ancient history.
Seems so long ago.
And just showing there what's we are down 4% on year on year in that month, but nearly 6% in the quarter, in the 3 months up to May. Demand again weaker, while MENA was the strongest region. That overall total has been pulled down by a new player in our total add up. We've separated the UK in our trade analysis now. It is a separate part of the world being kicked out of Europe or taking leave from Europe.
And a significant importer and exporter of dairy product. So
the biggest cheese market and one of the largest regions in terms of total milk solids trade. So that's come out by itself, and it's weighed heavily on the numbers because we've then thrown that right back into history. And you can see that big orange bar is mostly represented by the fall in cheddar, in cheese imports into the UK in recent times. Quite a bit of uncertainty in that market, as you'd expect. So we'll have more of that next week. We just thought we'd give a little bit of a snippet.
Yeah, a little teaser.
Yeah. So watch out for that in next week's compelling video. Joe, chart of the week.
Chart of the week. Some stats coming out of Europe this week that were interesting, particularly those May production numbers. So what we're seeing there, a little bit more milk production, less going into fluid milk, so that gives you more in manufacturing, but everything's gone down in terms of those product outputs. Cream obviously reflecting the reality of what's happening over there in terms of again, food service slowly reopening, but demand really taking a hit for cream. But everything down, which is a little bit difficult to explain.
Yeah. So this is as reported. I want to point out this is what the Eurostat numbers show, and Eurostat is well known for revising numbers. We'll do some mass balance work on this to see if it makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
See if there may be some gaps there. You can see there just on the right, I've shown that we've just gone past the peak. Skim milk powder output wasn't as much as last year.
Yep.
With a little bit more milk, which is awfully encouraging. And butter's dipped down below as well. We think that gets worse later.
Okay.
But we'll see. Depends on milk growth.
Yeah.
We just picked up a bit.
Yeah.
So, well, that's all we have. It's goodbye from us. Hopefully we'll see you all here next week, but keep watching. And that's it.